Sit back and enjoy an hour of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started.
A star explodes in a supernova every 100 years on average in a galaxy. With the calculations for the number of galaxies that exist in the universe, 170 billion, it can be concluded that there are at least 53 supernovas exploding somewhere every second. No engineer on the Titanic survived. They stayed behind, keeping the electric lights running so people could escape. Their work allowed the pumps and essential systems to remain active during the critical moments, buying valuable minutes that helped save many more lives. China is the largest exporter of swimsuits. Approximately 70% of all swimsuits in the world come from that country. This is due to its enormous industrial capacity and the concentration of specialized factories that produce at large scale for international brands. In Australia, 15 million years ago, there existed a carnivorous flightless bird, approximately 8 feet tall and around 1,100 pounds in weight, which was nicknamed the demon duck, since it's believed to be an ancestor of ducks and geese. The ink in various pens has a scent similar to termite pheromones, so if you draw a line on a piece of paper near termites, they will follow it. This effect occurs because they confuse the chemical trace with a real trail, causing them to march in line as if following orders from their colony. It is estimated that more Lego minifigures have already been produced than there are people on planet Earth, more than 8 billion. These pieces have been manufactured for decades and have become collectible items, with thousands of different designs that increase every year. There is a rare species of snail that lives in Queensland, Australia, and when it was discovered, it was named Crikey Steve Irwin in honor of wildlife expert Steve Irwin, also known as the crocodile hunter. Building sandcastles is illegal on some beaches around the world, such as in Tenerife, Spain, and on Eraclea Beach near Venice, Italy. In these places, authorities argue that they can alter the coastal environment and obstruct pathways, so they impose fines on those who build them. Since it was installed in the Louvre Museum in Paris in 1804, the Mona Lisa has been in 4 other countries: when it was stolen and taken to Italy in 1911, when it was taken to the United States in 1963, and when it was exhibited in Japan and Russia in 1974. A law in India requires doctors to write medical prescriptions with the names of the medicines in uppercase letters and as clearly as possible to avoid mistakes that could lead to health problems due to misinterpreting handwriting. This rule was promoted after multiple cases of medical errors caused by bad handwriting, and today it is part of the official measures to improve patient safety. More than 100 years ago, in the 19th century, before the invention of mercury amalgams, people's teeth used to explode suddenly. This was because different metals were used, something that could create an electrochemical cell in the mouth, basically turning it into a low-voltage battery. The world produces enough food to adequately feed 11 billion humans. However, there are still regions where malnutrition exists. This is mainly due to poor distribution, local conflicts, and economic problems that prevent food from reaching those who need it most. If you put salt on pineapple, it does not become saltier, it stays sweet. This happens because the salt reacts with the acid in the fruit and becomes a neutral compound, which removes the salty taste. In addition, this mixture enhances the natural sugars, making the pineapple seem even sweeter to the palate. Japanese card games such as Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon are inspired by a card game from the Edo period called Obake Karuta, which featured creatures from Japanese mythology. This game was used both for entertainment and teaching, and it helped popularize many legends that are still part of Japanese culture. Studies in recent years indicate that some species of fungi that live in the fur of sloths could be used to produce medicines against parasitic and bacteriological diseases, which would help many people. The celebrated French writer of the 19th century, Guy de Maupassant, ate every day at the base of the Eiffel Tower. The reason for this is that he hated it so much that directly underneath it was the only place in Paris where he did not have to see it in the landscape. Studies have found evidence that humans infected with the flu virus tend to become more social and come into contact with larger groups of people, which makes contagion easier. This behavior appears to be influenced by the virus itself, which slightly alters behavior to increase its chances of spreading quickly. The double-bladed lightsaber used by Darth Maul in the movies Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is not actually built as a single piece. It is two lightsabers joined and welded together. For this reason, half of it still works when one side was destroyed by Obi-Wan. Anzac biscuits are traditional cookies from Australia and New Zealand that, in order to be sold according to the laws of those countries, must be prepared by following detailed instructions in the recipe. In 2008, the Subway chain was prohibited from putting them on its menu. According to a study conducted in 2007 by a university in Denmark, the true secret to happiness is having low expectations in life, resulting in fewer disappointments and more surprises. The first mention of a pen with an ink reservoir was in the year 973 in North Africa. The Caliph of Maghreb at that time, Al-Muizz li-Din Allah, requested a pen that would not stain his hands while writing, and that would have the ink inside. It was not until 1,000 years later that something similar was mentioned again in writings. A man named William Bergstrom became famous after he arrived in Las Vegas one day with two briefcases. One was empty, and the other contained $777,000 in cash. He bet everything he had in a double or nothing dice game and won. They helped him store the money in the empty briefcase, and he left. The country where the most instant noodles are consumed is China. It is estimated that each year, around 40 billion portions are bought there. The second place is Indonesia, with 12 billion per year. The production designer and director Greta Gerwig mentioned that painting the sets of the Barbie movie caused a worldwide shortage of pink paint, the characteristic tone of this toy brand. But a representative from the paint company Roscoe said the company already had supply chain problems beforehand. Bees control the thickness and clarity of the honey they produce by flapping their wings in the ventilation channels of the hive at different speeds to control water evaporation. In 2013, before a soccer match between Liechtenstein and England, the national anthem of Great Britain, God Save the Queen, was played twice because at that time it was also the anthem of Liechtenstein. Many countries used this melody as their national anthem until before the 20th century, including Russia, Germany, Switzerland, and Iceland, which later replaced it when creating their own anthem. Charlie, from the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971, did not want to be an actor. Even though he was offered a contract afterward for 3 movies, he rejected it and used the money he was paid to buy a horse, which inspired him to become a veterinarian. The phrase "saved by the bell" is attributed to boxing when the bell rings at the end of each round, but it is also speculated that it comes from a time when bells were placed on coffins in case someone had been buried alive and could be saved by ringing the bell. The video game Grand Theft Auto originated from the base of a game they were developing called Race and Chase, in which races could be done, but they discovered a glitch that caused police cars to ram the protagonist's vehicle. This inspired them to make the game more action-oriented and change the concept. Intellectual property laws do not cover magic tricks. That is, any original trick a magician performs cannot be registered and may be copied by any other magician without consequences. The planet Saturn is the only one in the solar system that has an average density lower than that of water. So in theory, it could float in a swimming pool if it were possible to build one of that size. In tennis, if your hat or cap falls off during a play or something accidentally interferes with the game, the umpire may order the last disputed points to be replayed. This may seem like an old rule, but for example, a Wimbledon match in '28 was decided with a play that was repeated because a player's visor fell off. The first test carried out at the Trinity site in New Mexico involved an experimental device of enormous power. The energy released was so intense that the sand in the area heated enough to melt and solidify again, forming a green glass-like material, later called trinitite. This unusual mineral became a historical symbol of the scientific advances of that era. A video game company that created the Halo franchise, Bungie, had to pull 200,000 copies of the strategy game Myth: The Fallen Lords from stores in 1998 because it had a problem that caused the default directory during uninstallation to be the entire hard drive, meaning you could accidentally erase your entire computer. The Greek mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras had an irrational fear of beans, as he said they resembled the gates of Hades, the underworld. He managed to convince the people around him of this, and for centuries, his school strictly avoided eating them, even during rituals and gatherings. A man named Dick Hoyt ran 247 triathlons, including events such as the Ironman, as well as 70 marathons, all while pushing his son in a wheelchair, who had a disability. During the filming of the 1959 movie Ben-Hur, blue dye had to be used for the water in the giant tank where the ship scenes were filmed to achieve the optimal color. During one of these scenes, an extra fell into the water and ended up completely dyed blue. So the studio, MGM, had to keep him on full pay until the color faded days later. In 1983, a computerized version of the game Monopoly was released for the ZX Spectrum computer, and to promote it, they claimed it was the first game to use artificial intelligence capable of competing against humans. The French attempted to change the time system in 1793. They began using what they called French Revolutionary Time, which, instead of 24, had only 10 hours in the day. Each hour had 100 minutes, and each minute 100 seconds, similar to the decimal metric system. However, it stopped being used only 17 months later because it caused too much confusion among people. In Finland, the World Mobile Phone Throwing Championships are held every year. This event was created in the year 2000 by a former Nokia employee to raise awareness about the increase of toxic waste from phones that are thrown away. The reaction of actor Alan Rickman at the moment he falls into the void in the movie Die Hard, playing the villain Hans Gruber, is authentic. The stunt double holding him let go earlier than agreed to achieve a better facial expression. Two scientists conducted an experiment in 1971 to practically prove the theory of relativity. They boarded airplanes with atomic clocks and flew twice around the world. When they landed, they compared the clocks with those that stayed on Earth and confirmed that they were no longer synchronized. Although the difference was in nanoseconds, the theory was proven. During World War II, the British had detailed plans to build an aircraft carrier made mainly of wood pulp and ice, but in the end, they were not able to complete it. The vegetable grown in the most different countries in the world is the onion, with at least 175 countries producing it. Wheat is the crop that covers the most territory worldwide, but it is grown in fewer countries. In Switzerland, there are more people considered millionaires than people who qualify to receive government social assistance. This contrast is due to its high standard of living and an economic system that concentrates much of its wealth in investments, companies, and financial services. Unlike dogs, cats cannot follow a vegetarian diet due to their biological makeup, as they would develop health problems. They need essential nutrients, such as taurine and preformed vitamin A, which they can only obtain from animal sources. Making a phone call on an airplane does not affect its operation. People are asked not to make calls during flights because the signal is picked up and bounces off many cell towers at the same time, which can overload the lines. During World War II, the Federal Reserve of the United States printed special bills for Hawaii so that they could be declared invalid in case the Japanese invaded the island. The main difference is that they have the word Hawaii written in large letters on the back. Most were destroyed afterward, but the ones that remain are highly valued by collectors. There are more scouts in Indonesia than in the rest of the world combined. In the most recent count, there were more than 21 million members participating. This is because it is a mandatory requirement for students. An analyst found a correlation between the most important moments in actress Anne Hathaway's career and the percentage increase in the stock price of Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway. Every time the actress has trended, the stock has risen. The voice of Batman in the movie The Dark Knight is much raspier and more exaggerated than in the previous one, Batman Begins. This was not actor Christian Bale's idea. It was director Christopher Nolan who decided to alter it in post-production to make it sound more intense. In 1983, in the region of Redondo Beach, California, they decided to adopt a new official bird to represent the area. The Goodyear blimp was chosen as the official bird, even though it is clearly not a bird. The guitarist of the heavy metal band Anthrax retired from playing because he began to see it as monotonous work. So he decided instead to pursue his dream, which he still does today, making and repairing watches. When Benjamin Franklin died in 1790, he left the cities of Boston and Philadelphia $4,400 each on the condition that the money not be spent for 200 years and that it remain in a savings account. By 1990, Boston reported that the fund was now worth more than $5 million. Cellophane was invented in 1908, and its original purpose was to protect tablecloths when wine was spilled, but it began to be used for many things, mainly as product wrapping. The singer of the band Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, has mentioned that during concerts, he needs an engineer to send sounds to his earphones every so often so he does not get distracted and can focus his mind, since he suffers from attention deficit. His daughter, actress Liv Tyler, has also said she has it, so she has had to take medication since her teenage years. The largest graffiti artwork ever made consists of a single line created by the artist Momo in Manhattan, nearly 8 miles long, spelling out his name. The most striking aspect is that he created it by traveling through the city with a homemade mobile painting system, turning the streets into part of his canvas. The diamond company De Beers has spent millions of dollars on research to determine the difference between a real diamond extracted from the earth and a diamond created through laboratory processes, and to this day, they have not achieved it. Laboratory diamonds are causing prices of real diamonds to drop. The swirl at the tip of the ice cream at the Dairy Queen restaurant chain is patented, and according to employees there is a very specific way to make it so that it comes out the same every time. A recent study conducted by Italian economists found that the wealthiest families in the city of Florence in 1427 are still the wealthiest even today, 6 centuries later. Similar evidence has been found in cities in Great Britain and China. The rapper Eminem was once sued by his mother, who wanted an amount of $11 million because of the way he mentioned her in the lyrics of his songs. But in the end, she settled for $25,000 plus her attorney's fee. The designers of the game Zelda: A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS designed everything tilted, including the maps and characters, so that it could be seen well from the classic top-down camera perspective. When the sun consumes all of its hydrogen fuel in its core and enters its red giant phase, it will become so large that it will very likely absorb planet Earth, as well as Mercury and Venus. But the conditions on Saturn's moon Titan could be favorable for developing life in a way similar to how it happened on Earth, and these conditions could last around 100 million years. But for the sun to become a red giant and swallow Earth, about 5 billion years still remain, so you should not worry about it. In 2008, Lamborghini gave the Italian police the world's fastest patrol car at the time, a Gallardo model with special equipment that included a cooler to transport organs for transplant. In 2009, it became unusable after a crash. In ancient Greece, having connected eyebrows was seen as a symbol of great intelligence and beauty in women, so it became a trend for those who did not have it naturally to use makeup to draw it. They even applied dark powder or homemade ointments to make it look more natural, as it was considered a refined and desirable trait. To demonstrate that the key to losing weight is not necessarily eating healthier, but rather consuming fewer calories, a nutrition professor consumed 1,800 calories of junk food, including Twinkies and Oreos, for 10 weeks. By the way, he also took multivitamins and protein shakes. In the end, he had lost 26 pounds and had also lowered his bad cholesterol level, but he did not recommend following that diet. It was only to prove that he could do it. In 2010, the police in Belfast, Northern Ireland, decided to use the sound that plays when ice cream trucks arrive to calm a riot that was taking place. And it worked. In 2009, China forgave a debt of $1,200,000,000 it had given to African countries, which may seem like a very large amount. But for example, in 2005, the G8 forgave more than $40 billion of African debt. There is a race called Man versus Horse Marathon that has been held in Wales since 1980. It has a distance of approximately 21.7 miles, and as its name suggests, people on horseback and people running compete at the same time. In 24, 27, and 2022, a runner won, while in the other years, a horse has won. Actor Keanu Reeves mentioned that he has done 90% of all his action scenes in the John Wick movies. He has used stunt doubles for the most dangerous ones. This helped the director make more creative shots since he did not need to use angles that hid the face of the double or arrange cuts in a specific way to switch between the double and the actor. During the first live presentation of the iPhone, Steve Jobs had to switch phones many times at planned moments so that the operating system would not run out of available RAM and freeze. Actor Aaron Paul, known for his role as Jesse Pinkman in the series Breaking Bad, appeared in some commercials at the beginning of his career, including one for Corn Pop cereal. He also participated in an episode of The Price is Right in the year 2000. The scene where Peter Parker catches the food that was about to fall in Spider-Man 1 was done without digital effects, but they had to repeat the take 156 times before getting it right. Meanwhile, members of the YouTube channel Corridor Digital recreated the scene the same way and succeeded in only 33 takes. Pop-Tarts, the popular breakfast in the United States, previously existed under the name Country Squares, but it was only when they were released as Pop-Tarts that they became famous, because younger generations preferred the name Pop, which was more connected with pop culture and pop music. Finland is the country with the most heavy metal bands per person in the world, while Sweden and Norway have 27 bands for every 100,000 inhabitants. Finland has twice as many, 54, for every 100,000. The city of Naples in Italy is closer to Mount Vesuvius than Pompeii, the city that was destroyed when it erupted, but it was not affected because the winds carried the hot ash to the other side. Until 2006, the Irish band U2 did not pay taxes in Ireland due to a law stating that artists were exempt from that payment. When the law changed and they began charging it, the band moved their earnings to the Netherlands to avoid paying. The first hacking-related security incident occurred in 1903, when a magician and inventor named Neville Maskelyne demonstrated that the new wireless telegraph communications were not secure and could be easily intercepted. When that technology was being presented, he took advantage of the moment to insert some insults directed at the creator of the invention. The night parrot of Australia is one of the birds that has been observed the least since its discovery. It had no confirmed sightings from 1912 to 1979, so it was thought to be extinct. The photographer took 15 years to find and film one of these. It's estimated that between 50 and 200 exist. The Sun, and therefore our solar system, take approximately 230 million years to orbit the center of the galaxy at a speed of about 137 miles per second. During that journey, it passes through different galactic regions, where the density of stars, interstellar dust, and radiation around us changes. According to its creator, Louis Riard, for a swimsuit garment to be considered a bikini, it had to be small enough to pass through a wedding ring. This was considered revolutionary, since in the year it was invented, 1946, swimsuits covered a much larger area of the body. In the Philippines, you can buy spaghetti at McDonald's, and it has become a very popular dish in that country. In other places, spaghetti has also been sold, but it was discontinued. The Filipino version is sweeter and includes sausage and special sauce adapted to local taste, which explains its success. The Texas horned lizard has an unusual defense mechanism. It can release a reddish fluid from the area near its eyes. This behavior helps distract potential predators and is one of the most curious adaptations among North American reptiles. Alka-Seltzer was created when the president of the Miles Laboratories Company was reading the newspaper and came across the advice of an editor, a home remedy to ease the flu that consisted of mixing baking soda and aspirin. In Japan, there are themed cafes where you can spend time with different animals, mainly cats and dogs, but there are also more unusual ones, such as a penguin cafe, a snake cafe, a hedgehog cafe, and even a capybara cafe. The city of Petra in Jordan had a better and more advanced water system than that of ancient Rome, and could supply water to more than 40,000 people in the middle of the desert. During the filming of the 2009 Star Trek movie, actor Zachary Quinto could not perform the Vulcan salute characteristic of the character he was playing. So, at one point, director J.J. Abrams had to glue his fingers together so he could do it correctly. Even though GPS is free worldwide, its real maintenance cost is approximately $2 million per day. This includes satellite operation, ground control, and constant corrections needed to maintain the system's accuracy. In DNA studies performed on the mummy of Tutankhamun, researchers found genetic material from the parasites transmitted by mosquitoes that cause malaria. It is the oldest proof of the existence of this disease. Around 4,000 years ago, there existed species of crocodiles called Mecasuchines, which are thought to have been completely terrestrial and whose diet consisted mainly of mollusks. Fossils have been found in several African regions, suggesting they occupied dry ecosystems and evolved differently from modern crocodiles. The first proposal ever made to build the Channel Tunnel or Eurotunnel to connect Great Britain and France was presented in 1802. According to this plan, it would have had oil lamps, horse-drawn carriages, and an artificial island halfway through to change horses. However, the proposal was discarded. It was not until 1994 that the Eurotunnel was opened. Gravity travels at a speed equivalent to the speed of light, or the maximum speed of the universe. Therefore, just like the light that comes from very distant stars, we also experience the gravitational force those stars had thousands of years ago, even if they no longer exist. In 2014, the Cassini probe received a 200-volt discharge directly from Saturn's moon Hyperion. This spacecraft made major discoveries about this satellite, such as its porous, sponge-like structure and the presence of water in the form of ice. In English, soap operas are traditionally called soap operas because the first ones created, which were broadcast on the radio, were aimed at housewives, and soap companies, considering them their main market, advertised their cleaning products during the commercial breaks. In the scene from the movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles and his father are looking at their phones as they scroll through their contact lists, the names that can be seen are the writers and artists who have worked on Spider-Man over the years. There was a building in the city of Tokyo that consisted of modular capsule rooms that to be changed and renovated every so often, resembling cells of a living organism. It became a famous structure, but was demolished in April of 2022 due to lack of maintenance. In 2014, the sports brand Reebok attempted to sell bacon as part of an advertising campaign aimed at CrossFit enthusiasts due to the popularity of the paleo diet, which is high in animal protein, vegetables, and seeds. However, shortly afterward, they stopped doing it and never mentioned it again. At Oberlin College in Ohio, United States, they have a special art rental program with works from well-known artists such as Picasso, Lichtenstein, and Dali, so more people can appreciate them, and they rent them for only $5 per semester, so students can place them in their dorm rooms. There is a nanny school for wealthy people in Great Britain, where students have to study for 4 years to graduate, and among their skills are martial arts for self-defense and stunt driving in case of any emergency. When traveling to Iceland, one of the recommendations for tourists states that the country's drinking water may smell like rotten eggs or sulfur. However, it is safe to drink and does not taste bad. This happens due to a treatment used to prevent temperature variations from causing the pipes to break. Research discovered that taurine, the amino acid added to energy drinks like Red Bull, caused some mice to live longer. Those given taurine lived between 10 and 12% longer than those that were not. Helium in liquid form has no viscosity, so it can flow through microscopic holes. For example, it can pass through walls and floors using only the force of gravity. This behavior occurs when it enters its superfluid phase, a unique quantum state that defies traditional physical laws. When squirrels feel they are being watched, they often pretend to bury the food they have, but in reality, they hide it in their mouths. They can also remember with great precision all the places where they have buried acorns, eating first the ones that have been there the longest and are closest to spoiling. In two scenes of the movie Oppenheimer, Robert Oppenheimer has conversations with the physicist Albert Einstein. While this biographical film is faithful to reality, it is not known whether these conversations actually happened. The two physicists had their offices in the same building at Princeton University, so they had to interact daily. But the topic of their conversations came from the imagination of director Christopher Nolan. The favorite drink of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il was Hennessy Cognac. He liked it so much that he reportedly spent up to $1 million in a single year just on bottles of this drink. Professional bowling involves invisible oil patterns placed before each game that affect the speed and spin of each throw. This adds levels of difficulty. Snapping turtles evolved to have defensive mechanisms against predators, including their strong bite. This is because they are too large to fully hide inside their shells like other turtles do. In 2007, Scotland spent £125,000 on a team of people to come up with a new national slogan that would promote the positive things about the country. The winning slogan was "Welcome to Scotland." In 2009, a phone from the brand Peak was released that only had the function of running Twitter. It cost $99, and according to reviews, it was not even good for tweeting. Shortly afterward, it was pulled from the market. During the filming of a famous aerial sequence in Apocalypse Now, the helicopters suddenly left the set because they were needed for a real emergency. Shortly after, they returned to continue filming. It is one of the most curious anecdotes behind the production of the movie. Birds cannot be taken into space because they need gravity to consume their food. They do not have special muscles to move food toward their stomach. Unlike humans, they would need to be fed with the help of a device. In 1989, a man found an original copy of the United States Declaration of Independence hidden in the back of an old painting he bought at a market for only $4. After confirming its authenticity, he sold it for $2,400,000. Neutron stars have such strong gravity that the tallest mountain that could form on one would be less than 1/5 of an inch high, so their surface is almost completely smooth. The mandarin fish is one of the only two vertebrates known to have natural blue pigment in its cells. Other blue animals have their blue color thanks to the optical effect of light scattering by particles. During the 1970s, there were 6 different Flintstones-themed amusement parks in the United States. One of them was put up for sale in 2015 for $2 million. Satellite images in China until 2020 were not aligned with the streets on existing maps. This happened because of regulations that made the GPS standard in that country different from the rest of the world. The Taj Mahal in India has been protected or camouflaged twice in history. During World War II, so it would not be easily identified, and later during the Indo-Pakistani War in 1971, although both times it was not fully covered. The last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, is believed to have died in battle alongside his men, because he did not want to draw attention dressed as an emperor and preferred to be one more among his army during the fall of Constantinople in 1453. For people who have trouble sleeping, many experts recommend camping for a week without technology. This makes the circadian rhythm synchronize with sunrise and sunset, improving sleep quality. Video game controllers are widely used in military applications. For example, to control remote vehicles and to operate submarines. This is because they are generally well-built, more reliable, and easy for anyone to use. The L in the English word could was intentionally added in the 15th or 16th century, just so it could be spelled similarly to would and should. The first time a human set foot on Antarctica was in the year 1820, making it the last place in the world to be discovered. However, since the first century, there have been hypotheses about its existence, and many maps drawn many centuries ago included a continental mass to the south of Earth, even though no one had ever seen that place at the time. The theory of plate tectonics was presented and accepted only in the 1960s, despite all the observations that had been made in the 2 centuries prior to that date. Its late acceptance was due to a lack of technology to measure ground movement, but once the evidence was gathered, it completely revolutionized the modern understanding of earthquakes, mountains, and continents. The only land border that Canada had was with the United States, the longest border in the world. But in 2022, Canada and Denmark signed an agreement to split the territory of Hans Island, a small, uninhabited island near Greenland that belongs to Denmark. It is now one of the smallest borders in the world. It measures only 0.7 miles. Papua New Guinea is one of the countries with the greatest cultural diversity in the world. They currently have 836 different languages, despite having only 11 million inhabitants, which is the equivalent of a different language for every 14,000 people. The northernmost sand dunes in the world are located in the region of Saskatchewan in Canada. They can measure up to approximately 98 feet. There are also sand dunes in Finland, but they are near a beach and are smaller than those in Canada. The current capital of Slovenia, the city of Ljubljana, has belonged to 10 different countries or territories in the last 200 years, including the Illyrian provinces, Austria, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, Italy, Germany during the Second World War, Yugoslavia as a country, and finally Slovenia. An antipode is a point that is located exactly on the opposite side of planet Earth, and due to the location of the continents, some countries are directly opposite others, such as Argentina and Chile, which are on the opposite side of China, or Spain and Portugal with New Zealand. The Pacific Ocean is so large that it has 2 antipodal points. The largest national park in the entire European Union is in South America. It's the Guiana Amazonian Park in French Guiana, and it covers around 13,102 square miles. In this same region is France's longest border, which is the one shared with Brazil. This is because French Guiana counts as French territory. The territory of Japan is farther east, farther west, farther north, and farther south than the entire Korean peninsula. This is because there are many Japanese islands to the south, including the westernmost island, Yonaguni, which are quite far from Japan's main island. In recent years, Samsung has filed more than 8,000 patent applications every year on average in the United States, which is almost 22 different ones each day. It is currently the company that submits the most invention patent requests of all. The three countries that have formed most recently are South Sudan in 2011, Kosovo in 28, and Montenegro in 26. Each one emerged after complex political processes, prolonged conflicts, and decisive votes that redefined borders and gave rise to new national identities. The North Pole has no land. There are no islands or continental mass there. Despite having a walkable surface, it is actually pure frozen water. In addition, the thickness of the ice constantly changes due to Arctic Ocean currents, meaning it is never the same place twice. The Congo River is the deepest river in the world. It can reach 656 feet in depth. It is considered a zone of megadiversity, so much so that many endemic species live there that have evolved differently from those in shallower rivers. The highest point in Denmark, at 561 feet above sea level, is lower than the lowest point in Switzerland, which is 633 feet. Meanwhile, the highest point of the Netherlands, despite being a notoriously flat country, is 1,056 feet. There is an island called Inaccessible Island in the Tristan da Cunha archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean, where the smallest flightless bird in the world lives, the Tristan rail, which measures 6.7 inches and has managed to thrive because there are no predators there. This is the opposite of what happened to other flightless birds on other islands, such as the dodo, which became extinct. Jupiter is the equivalent of a cosmic vacuum cleaner, meaning its gravitational force attracts comets and asteroids that pass nearby. If it did not exist, the probability of impacts on the other planets, including planet Earth, would be much higher, so it acts as a shield. A Japanese engineer named Akira Haraguchi holds the record for the largest number of pi digits recited from memory. It took him 16 hours to say them. To memorize them, he used a method in which he assigned letters to each number and turned them into easy-to-remember stories. Professional Scrabble players usually memorize all the words of the language in which they want to compete by reading a dictionary, but without learning the meaning, because knowing the context lowers their performance. That is why the most winning Scrabble players in English are from Thailand. They do not know the language. The Gafsa Lake in Tunisia is a lake that appeared out of nowhere from one day to the next and became a tourist attraction. Although shortly after appearing, its turquoise water turned green because it stopped flowing. The Koh-i-Noor, a diamond that was once the largest in the world, was inside the Taj Mahal in India. But when Great Britain conquered India, the British East India Company took it to make it part of the British Crown Jewels in 1877. It is still displayed today in the Tower of London Museum. The 5 villages on Kiritimati Island in Kiribati have interesting names: Tabwakia, London, Poland, Paris, and Banana. Many were given by European explorers, and today contrast with the local culture, creating a unique historical mix in the Pacific. Approximately 5 million years ago, the Mediterranean Sea dried up when a natural dam formed in the area that is now the Strait of Gibraltar, in an event known as the Messinian Salinity Crisis, exposing the ocean floor. But a few centuries later, the sea returned with one of the most extreme floods ever to occur on the planet. The 3 northern territories of Canada, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, have an area similar to that of the entire country of India. However, only 100,000 inhabitants live in that region. Most people in Canada are concentrated in the southern part of the country. Despite being culturally associated with the area, coconuts are not native to Hawaii. It is believed that they arrived floating in the ocean and grew on the island, migrating on their own, similar to pineapples, which also did not originally grow there. The territory of Croatia has such an unusual shape that its geographic center lies outside Croatia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This peculiarity is due to its extremely long and curved coastline, which shifts the balance of its territory inland more than many would imagine. Thousands of years ago, the first humans who arrived at what are now the islands of Sumatra, Java, Borneo, and Bali reached them on foot from southern Asia, since the sea level was low at that time and land bridges formed. Meanwhile, the humans who populated the area of eastern Indonesia, unlike those of the other islands, had arrived there on rafts from Asia many years earlier and populated that region, later moving to New Guinea and Australia. The longest distance you can travel on a ship in a straight line without touching land goes from the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia to Pakistan, a total of approximately 19,944 miles. On a flat map, it looks like a curved line, but on a 3D map, it is a straight line. Russia borders Norway on one side, which is the country ranked first in freedom indexes, and on the other side, it borders North Korea, which is in last place among all countries in these indexes that measure different things such as press freedom, economic freedom, and democracy. The most remote inhabited place in the world is a settlement called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, which is located on one of the Tristan da Cunha Islands in the Atlantic Ocean. To get there, you must take a ship from Cape Town, South Africa, which takes 6 days to arrive since the island has no airport. The nearest settlement is approximately 1,350 miles away on the island of St. Helena. Mount Augustus in Australia, despite its name, is actually considered the largest monolith or rock in the world. It measures 3,627 feet in height and is believed to have formed about 1,650,000,000 years ago. There are 3 countries that are completely surrounded by another country. Lesotho is surrounded by the territory of South Africa. San Marino is surrounded by Italy, and the Vatican is also inside Italy. All other countries either have a coastline or border 2 or more different countries. The city of Damascus in Syria is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. It is believed that people settled there at least 11,000 years ago. It has more than 125 historical monuments from different periods of the area, such as the Umayyad Mosque, built in the 8th century. The only place where the Japanese language is the official language is on the island of Angar in Palau, where only around 130 people live. In Japan, Japanese is not specified as an official language. This happened because when the Constitution of Palau was created, many of the people who participated in the process had been educated in Japanese due to the South Pacific Mandate of 1919. However, currently no person on that island speaks Japanese. There are only 2 permanent populations in Antarctica where civilians live year-round. These are Villa Las Estrellas from Chile and Esperanza Base from Argentina. In each of these places, around 60 people live in winter and 150 in summer. It is required that all people who live there must not have an appendix as a preventive measure in case of an emergency, since health services are limited in the event of any incident. The crocodiles that live in the Sahara Desert region are actually a remnant from when the area had much more water and a different climate. Over time, they became trapped and forced to adapt to the new dry climate, surviving in smaller bodies of water. Eventually, they began diverging into a separate species. Rolls-Royce offers a course called White Glove Experience to teach chauffeurs things such as minimizing fingerprint marks on door handles and the correct process for braking without making the car bounce. The Spanish language has approximately 300,000 different words or concepts, although the Royal Spanish Academy gathers only 88,000 of them. Even so, most speakers use only a few thousand in their daily life, which reflects the enormous richness of the language. In Japan, there are 3 museums dedicated to instant noodles, including the Cup Noodles Museum, the brand that sells the most instant noodles in the world. Each museum explains its history, allows you to create your own personalized cup, and receives millions of visitors every year. Deadpool comic number 27 holds the Guinness record for the largest number of comic book characters on a single cover. There were 236 different ones. Repeated characters or real people represented were not counted. There are 4 bags of astronaut waste on the moon today. They were left by Neil Armstrong during the Apollo 11 mission on July 20th, 1969. The cosmetics company L'Oreal has a special laboratory to grow human skin for use in product testing. They have also incorporated 3D printing technology into their skin growing process. In the city of Kazan in Russia, there is a structure called the Temple of All Religions, which combines architectural styles of different religions and serves as a cultural center for peaceful gathering. It is still not fully completed. There are 3 countries in the world that do not have a single forest: Qatar, Oman, and San Marino. On the contrary, the countries with the most forested territory are Russia, Brazil, and Canada. The most unusual volcano on the planet is Oldoño Lengai, northwest of Tanzania, Africa. It is different from all other volcanoes because it is the only one that flows with a specific carbonate composition, which makes its lava much cooler, only 1,904 degrees Fahrenheit, appearing black during the day and bright red at night. And when it comes into contact with water, it turns white. The largest country without an airport is Andorra. It only has 3 private heliports, and to travel by plane, people go to the nearest airports in France or Spain. The other countries without airports are Liechtenstein, Monaco, San Marino, and Vatican City. The Amazon River is the longest river in the world. It measures a little more than 4,350 miles. Despite that, there is not a single fixed bridge crossing it. This is due to the dense jungle, strong currents, and the lack of large cities aligned along its course, which makes such a construction unfeasible. Chile stretches from north to south for approximately 2,653 miles. If the length of Chile were used as a unit of measurement, as indicated by this map, the entire world would be less than 5 Chiles away from Chile. The farthest part would be the central region of China. There is an area of more than 772 square miles in Africa, between Egypt and Sudan, called Bir Tawil, which does not belong to any country and has not been claimed by anyone, being considered terra nullius or no man's land. Attempts to claim the area and turn it into an autonomous country have been ignored by the international community. The city of Plymouth, the capital of Montserrat, had to be completely evacuated and became a ghost town in 1997 due to sudden eruptions from a volcano that had been inactive for centuries. After that, the government moved to a city in the northern part of the island, but they left Plymouth as an honorary capital. The island of Java in Indonesia has a population larger than that of Russia, even though it has less than 1% of the size of Russian territory. In addition, it is the economic center of the country, contains enormous overpopulated cities, and continues to grow each year. Uzbekistan and Liechtenstein are the only landlocked countries that are surrounded by other landlocked countries as well. Therefore, to reach the sea by land, if you leave either of these 2 countries, you must cross 2 different countries. The full name of the city of Bangkok, the capital of Thailand, has 168 letters and is recognized as the longest place name in the world. It is written in Pali and Sanskrit. Many Thai people know it by heart because a rock band called Asani Wasan made a song in '89 whose lyrics are this name repeated several times. The coldest permanently inhabited city in the world is Oymyakon in Russia, in eastern Siberia. In January and February, its average temperature is minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit, and the highest average temperature is in July at 59 degrees. No permit or visa is required to live and work in Svalbard, an archipelago that is part of Norway and is located very close to the North Pole. This is where the global seed vault is preserved in the permanently frozen ground. The first thing they teach you when you arrive is how to defend yourself in case of a polar bear attack. The away uniforms in Major League Baseball are gray because 100 years ago, visiting teams did not have access to laundries while traveling, so making them gray made stains and dirt less noticeable. After that, it simply stayed as a tradition. The Metallica song Master of Puppets became the first metal song to be added to the United States Library of Congress Recording Registry for being considered culturally significant. In the movie Scott Pilgrim, during the scenes in which the enemies or X's are eliminated, real Canadian coins were used, specifically the $1 and $2 Canadian coins. More than 1,800 ancient scrolls were preserved by becoming carbonized in Pompeii due to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79. Some are still being deciphered today. The country of Kiribati, which is pronounced Kiribati in the Micronesian Gilbertese language, is an archipelago and is the only country in the world whose main territory is located in all four hemispheres. A myoclonic jerk is the sudden twitch that sometimes happens to people right as they are about to fall asleep. No clinical explanation has been found for this phenomenon, but it is believed to simply be a contraction caused by the sensation of falling, like a surprise, and 70% of the population experiences it at some point. The lead singer of the band The Offspring, Dexter Holland, has a doctorate in molecular biology that he was still studying while he was already in the band. He received it in 2017. In Bolivia, there's a hotel made completely of salt. It was built in 1998, and according to the rules of the place, it is forbidden to taste the walls. The reason we do not like hearing our own voice in recordings is because when we hear ourselves normally, it sounds deeper due to the resonance of our skull. However, when we hear it recorded, it is how it sounds to everyone else. In 2007, 90% of Vietnam's internet connection went down because some fishermen cut one of the main undersea cables to sell the materials. There is a violin made entirely of diabase rock known as black granite. It was made from drawings by Antonio Stradivari, with some modifications so it could be playable. The composition of that rock gives it a specific sound that cannot be achieved with wood. Being a dentist is one of the oldest professions in humanity. Evidence has been found of treatments on the teeth of people from around 9,000 years ago. During the First World War, thousands of animals were used for transport and support tasks. In recognition of their effort and the harsh conditions they faced, there is now a monument dedicated to them, including horses, mules, and donkeys, which were an essential part of logistics at the time. When Rajput warriors in India went into battle, they put fake trunks on their horses, making them look like baby elephants to the enemy's war elephants. This instinctively made the elephants avoid attacking them. It was believed that no recordings existed of the voice of telephone inventor Alexander Graham Bell. However, in 2013, a wax disc was found that contained a voice saying, "Hear my voice, I'm Graham Bell," and it turned out to be authentic. The first vehicle to successfully land on another planet and transmit data was the Soviet Union's Venera 7 probe in 1970. It landed on Venus and sent data for 23 minutes. But the information was not complete because it is believed it landed on its side. There's a hotel in Sweden where all the rooms are in trees, including the most exotic one called Biosphere, which is covered with wooden houses for forest animals. The summit of Everest is considered the highest point in the world at 29,029 feet above sea level. However, the point farthest from the center of Earth, and therefore the closest to space, is the summit of the Chimborazo volcano in Ecuador, since the planet has a geoid shape, making the area near the equator slightly higher. The northernmost point of Brazil's territory is closer to Canada than to the southernmost point of Brazil. This uneven distance is due to the elongated shape of the country, which spans extremely different climates, ecosystems, and regions within the same territory. Russia spans 11 time zones out of the 24 in the world. When someone on one end is waking up, someone on the other end of the country is already having dinner. Meanwhile, China uses only one time zone, so that the entire country has the same time as the capital, Beijing. According to projections from the United Nations, India has already surpassed China as the most populated country on the planet, with a little more than 1,425,000,000 people. But according to official statistics, China is still the most populated. The village of Mawsynram in the Khasi Mountains in the state of Meghalaya in India is recognized as the place where it rains the most in the entire world. On June 17th of 2022, it broke the record for the most rainfall in a single day with approximately 41 inches in 24 hours. In the Philippines, there is a small island called Vulcan Point, located in the crater lake of the Taal volcano, which in turn is an island in a lake, and that lake is located within the Philippines, which in turn is also made up of islands. In other words, it's an island in a lake, inside an island in a lake inside an island. The Okavango River in southern Africa has the peculiarity that it does not reach the ocean, but instead flows into the desert. It has an outlet or delta, but it does not go anywhere. It is designated as a World Heritage Site. However, in recent years, it has been drying up, which could completely change the ecosystem of the area. Penitentes are a snow formation that only occurs in high-altitude areas of the dry Andes in Chile and Argentina, and they form due to conditions such as the dew point being below freezing and wind speed. It is believed that they also form on Pluto and on Jupiter's moon, Europa.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.